Hey there, Dr. Mark here, and today I'm going to show you exactly how to do weekly check-ins with your nutrition clients. I'm going to show you how to respond, what to say, what nutritional adjustments to make, plus how to keep clients motivated through this process so you can produce even better results. I'm going to walk you through 3 different real-life examples, easy, medium, and hard, so make sure to stay till the end of the video to see how to nail a challenging check-in so you know the exact words to keep a client on track. Let's dive in.
Okay, so here we are, gang. I'm ready to do my first check-in here, and this client actually wants to be named. He said it would be good for accountability and guidance. So the first client we're going to be working on here is Adrian Cochet. He's a physiotherapist here from Saskatoon. He's had started a new family, got 2 little ones at home, and he's let his fitness slide. He's 5'9", 200 pounds, and looking to get back into things. We started working together a few weeks ago, and we're going to touch base on how things are going, make any adjustments that need to happen, talk about what's going on with him, and I'll teach you the framework around how I'm approaching these coaching check-ins and the situation and how I'm going to respond. Okay, so the first client here I got is client number 1, Adrian. He's done his first week of tracking with me. We're just getting started. I do know that he's experienced at this. We've worked together in the past, but he is getting back on track. So I have my check-in results here that he's passed along. If you haven't yet got my check-in form and you haven't downloaded it or checked it out, drop form in the comments below and I'll make sure that it gets over to you so that you can use this sort of as just like a template, make it your own, kind of go from there. But here's some of the questions I'm asking him. Describe any successes you had this week, describe any setbacks or issues you had this week. Is there anything coming up in terms of challenges or things that we need to plan for? Anything else of note and how I can help you? So he answered those questions as well as got me the objective information from his first week. You'll see that his macro targets to start here were 170 grams of protein, 250 grams of carbs, and 65 grams of fat. When I'm going through this stuff, when I'm looking at it, everything's in front of me. Here are the things that I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about, first of all, what sort of results are we seeing here? He wants to get leaner. What's happening with his body weight? How he's describing the process around maybe how clothes are fitting, that type of thing. I want to think about results. I also want to think about adherence. How well did he actually stick to the plan and what I have described? I'm also thinking about in terms of like feedback cues and what's going on in terms of biofeedback. What's his hunger like, energy levels? Did he mention anything about exercise performance? Is there anything that's nutrition related that we need to adjust for or think about? I'm also thinking about, behavior and motivation. Where is he coming from here? Is he, keen to continue to move on with the same plan, is motivated to push forward? Does he have that awareness around, what he needs to change? And is he like ready to go? Or do I kind of gotta either, depending on how he likes to be coached, do I got to pump him up? Do I got to address where he's at? Do I got to give him some tough love? What are the things that I need to do based on how he's describing the things are going? Also, I'm thinking, yes, what's coming up? And he describes that his birthday is coming up February 17th. His family's going to be here. So there's some social situations that we're probably going to need to navigate. So he says right off the bat, much better getting my protein sources up. Fantastic. That was some of the first feedback that we got, into here. But they had 6 kids, sick kids. They traveled for, a family-based weekend, traveling, making, the food choices on the road not as good. As well, he's got something coming up here. And he's wondering, my protein's coming up. What are your thoughts on using supplemental sources of protein? So when I look at this stuff, I'm thinking, yeah, his protein's pretty good. Got pretty close to the target most days within 5 grams. Carbs are, if we look at the average, a little bit lower. And fat's a little bit higher, but most of that's coming from over the weekend here. But for a first week, I'm looking at these numbers and thinking, hey, this is a pretty solid first week. I also asked him just to track his steps because he had mentioned just activity-wise, that was on the lower end of things. So I'm thinking he's got his steps here. Maybe we can set a step target to keep things moving as well. That's totally within, what I'm comfortable with doing and giving him suggestions and kind of going from there. So that's what I'm thinking. So based on all of this, I'm thinking his body weight on average, it's coming down, which is fantastic. That means to me, like, he's in a deficit. Things are moving in the right direction based on what he's doing right now. I don't think I need to change the food levels all that much in terms of calories. If anything, I'm just going to make some adjustments based on what his carbohydrates and fat look like based on his food choices. We're going to make some swaps there, bring the fat up a little bit, carbs down based on what I'm seeing, and bring the protein up which is going to be helpful for him to keep full and maintain his lean body mass as we get leaner here. So those are some of the adjustments I'm making. I'm making it based on kind of what we're seeing in feedback and what's working well, and some adjustments. We can make food adjustments and macro adjustments based on where the client is going and based on their food preferences, as opposed to just what like the textbook says. So those are the adjustments I'm making right off the bat here. I'm seeing that things are going well. I'm seeing that he's sticking to things, well enough. So that's the type of feedback I'm getting. Hey, or going to give him, hey, everything looks good. We're going to bring your protein up. We're going to keep the calories the same. We're going to continue to move in that direction. Based on your question around supplemental protein, if you're going to find that, supplements, the definition of supplement is something that you should add into your diet. Based on what I'm seeing here, I think it would be a good idea for you to supplement, because we're going to bump up the target here, and it could be helpful for you to reach that number. Now, for men, typically, like, how much should you be taking supplementing? If we're taking more than 2 scoops of protein powder and a bar per day, that's going to be problematic. It's going to start to displace out nutrients. For females, it's usually around 1 and 1 supplemental protein and maybe a bar. So as long as you're staying within that, I don't see there being an issue at all. I'm also going to say, hey, I think we should probably set a step target here of at least 8,000 steps a day, because that's going to keep you moving. And those are the things that I'm going to discuss. What I'm going to do and put together in an email response back is me talking over this, as well as the paper trail and the action steps around what I've changed. Hey, this looks good. Here's what you're doing. This is what we're going to change. This is how you're going to address it. Let me know how that all sounds and go from there. Got the birthday party coming up here. I'd consider maybe doing something like a flex day, which is going to be a strategy I'm going to detail in the video. I'll link up at the end of this video, so check that out. But for now, I don't think it's a terrible idea for him just to try to do his best to guesstimate and work that within the numbers. If he wants to take a meal off or the night off or the day off for his birthday, I would totally understand that. And that's a conversation that I'll ask him about in terms of how he wants to navigate that, or use a flex day and take the meal off and kind of go from there. So those are my thoughts around client 1 and how I'm going to check in with this client.
Okay, so the second client we have here is a mom of 3. She just recently had her 3rd baby. You might remember her from the How to Get Started Working with a Nutrition Client video a few videos ago, but she's getting back into the swing of things here. She had made a big goal of getting in her best shape at 30, but was pregnant and is now looking to do the exact same thing at 31. I'm gonna check in with her and see how everything is going.
Okay, so client number 2 is a busy mom of 3. They have a new baby here, and she's getting back into the swing of things. She had mentioned in terms of successes over this week, very mindful of choices, had a daughter's birthday party, it was Super Bowl, but didn't feel like she was missing out on anything. So that to me is like just music to my ears. Sounds fantastic. We're gonna get back into the swing of things here. I'm really, really happy with that. I think the feedback around sometimes it's hard to get in macros all by the end of the day means that in terms of appetite levels and stuff, she's making some food choices that are, number one, keeping her very full. So in terms of, is there room for us to make a drop and make it easier to hit? That's kind of where my mind's going right off the bat without looking what's going on with her weight. She does want to get leaner, and weight does, based on where she started, and we've only been at this point for about 10 days, based on where she started at around 220 now, and she's already down, a few pounds here based on these food levels, but appears to be, somewhat staying put at 227, 228 over the last week. I feel like I'm able to make that food drop and kind of go from there. So based on these food levels, 115 protein, 205 grams of carbs, 65 grams of fat, 1800 calories, I'm feeling good about making around a 5 to 10% calorie drop, coming mainly from carbohydrates and a little bit from fat, because if I look at her targets here, 205 grams, she's below that most days. That makes sense for us to take from, as well as fat. She did a better job of adhering to that. So I'm making some changes and adjustments based on what she's already doing and what's going to make it easier for her to adhere to a lower level of calories. I think it makes sense to bring the protein up a touch, because based on the numbers here, it looks like she's able to do it, number one, and it's going to be helpful for her. So we're going to bring that protein up. It looks like, based on what she's doing too, in terms of following an exercise program and stuff, she has a Peloton bike at home. She looks to be enjoying it and using it. I'm just going to make the suggestion of, hey, how does it sound to add in a third rod
this week and keep things moving and go back and forth around that. So those are the changes that I would make. It sounds like things are moving in the right direction. I don't feel like there's anything else I would address. So in terms of my check-in with her, it's like, hey, this is a fantastic weekend. I think you're doing really, really well. Things are moving in the right direction. You feel like you stuck to things really well. Maybe there's some room for you to add in a bit more exercise and go from there. You don't feel like you're missing out on anything. Let's bring down the food levels a little bit, protein up, carbohydrates and fat down to make up that, food drop we're going to make, and then keep plugging away and think about adding in that third Peloton class and going from there. That's how I'm going to check in with that client, and that's what I'm going to include.
Okay, so the third client check-in we're gonna do here is with a female client. She's 5'4", around 140 pounds, and she has some fat loss focus goals. She hadn't tracked macros specifically in the past, so this part is new for her. And there's some interesting things that she said in her check-in that I want to address because they can be difficult conversations. And a lot of times, maybe there's a discrepancy between what the client feels needs to happen or their understanding of the situation. This one has to do with something that would be like a cheat day scenario and what she needs to do and how it could impact her results and even just mindset around this process. So I'm going to talk about that and address that, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, this is client number 3, and I saved this client for last because I thought there was a few things that popped up in the check-in that I wanted to address and talk about, and I knew you guys would find some value in listening to. So first thing first, my scale conveniently broke the day I started this program. I haven't been able to weigh in since. I am getting a new one today. I see that based on the sheet here, she got a new scale and it was dramatically different than the beginning, and that kind of threw her off a little bit. It's like, hey, I'm actually 5 pounds less now. Like, what does this even mean? So to me, the first thing is scale weight is all relative. It doesn't matter if it's like true or accurate. We're just going to get repeated measurements so we can get a better sense of what's going on. So to me, it's like, did you actually start at 140? No. Are you down 5 pounds already? No, you're not, but we're just going to use this new number and go from there. Within our macro targets based on body weight, this doesn't make a huge difference anyway, so I'm not overly concerned about that. We're just going to use this new number as a starting point and go from there. She feels like, based on her feedback here, that this week went really well. Didn't go over her calorie once. She has some fat loss goals, so that to me means, yeah, she's adhering already. She is tracked macros in the past, but for first getting back to tracking macros, I was surprised about how easily and smooth it went. I completely agree when we look at these numbers, and she's not feeling deprived at all. So that's fantastic. In terms of adherence, yeah, things look really good here. I think there's room for us based on this first week here to bump up her protein, which, at 100 grams per day and her body weight, I think we can go up from there, and we're going to make those adjustments and then go from there. And I think that makes total sense as well. She had also mentioned, and we just have a short weeks right now at this point when I'm checking in with this client, we have just this short week's worth of data here, and based on this stuff too, you're kind of getting the middle of the story here. So keep that in mind. But based on what we're seeing here, I think there's room for us to bump up the protein. The one thing that I wanted to talk about at this point too was that do you foresee any challenges or anything coming up this week? My partner on Saturday and I are going to have a massive supper from Domino's, pizza, cheesy bread, wings, dessert, but otherwise no concerns. That to me is, she's saying she's not feeling deprived at all, which is fantastic, but she's going to eat this food. Nothing is off limits here. There's just nothing's good or bad. There's just better or worse choices. But that to me is almost sounding a little bit like cheat day type of thing. So I'm going to counsel her to be like, hey, none of those foods are off limits. If possible, try to work these into your food levels, and remember that 200 calories over is always better than 500 calories over, and 500 calories over is always better than saying, screw it, I'm not going to track any of this at all. So the more that we can get away from that yes or no mindset, black and white mindset, the better off she'll do. So that's the biggest thing that I want to address with this client here, is that, like, especially because you don't feel like anything's off, we can just continue to move towards more balance, making good food choices while eating things that aren't conventional diet foods, getting results, and then kind of going from there. It doesn't need to be so black and white. But based on what I'm seeing here, adding in a bit more protein, keeping her calories more or less the same, and keeping things moving in that direction is a good place to start. And then based on this other data that I've gotten since then, which is sort of like cheating, we made the right move because things are continuing to move in that direction. But those are the things I'm including on this short week for this check-in to keep things moving. And that's a difficult scenario because we want to approach it with a little bit of empathy, not saying, hey, don't do that, that would be silly, but hey, this is where I'm coming from and I want you to kind of view it this way. Let me know what you think and we'll go from there. So those are my thoughts around that.
And that's it, folks. 3 step-by-step examples of how to do nutrition coaching check-ins with your clients. So I hope you found that helpful. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe to my channel for more weekly nutrition coaching content. Do it now. And as great as all those tips are, if you're really serious about starting a nutrition coaching business, the next thing I'll have you do is check out this video I've linked up right here. Now that you're doing nutrition coaching check-ins like a boss, make sure you've set the perfect price. You'll learn how to do that right here, so check out the next video and I'll see you in there.